Everest Live, it's June 8th. My hat's on crooked, and we have some updates about Hillary Dawa, and we have some good news to share. I was able to speak with Hillary Dawa via video call today, and I'm just blown away by his strength and like good humor and presence, and it was great. We didn't talk for very long. I was able to kind of corroborate some aspects of his story that I'd been like learning about and picking up on. And we just kind of checked in, and I sort of let him know how the fundraising was going. And I let him know that there's a whole world of supporters out there that are rooting for him and that are just totally blown away by his story. So thank you for everybody who gave me something to talk to him about. So the nuts and the bolts of his condition, how he's doing. Basically, it's great. He's looking great. He's got some significant things to overcome. He's got some broken bones in his leg. He's battling some minor frostbite in his hands. And basically everything that comes out of this 6-day epic, no oxygen, no food survival story. But he's been making great progress. The doctors are super happy. And I think for us, without getting too much into his private medical information, what I understand and what the family's comfortable with me sharing with all of you is just that he's making a really good recovery. What this will mean for the future, we don't know, right? And I think I'm learning, talking to his wife, talking to other people, talking to him. There's a lot of question marks about, what he's going to be able to do for work. He's spent his whole life working in the trekking climbing industry. And I think probably the will, but also the feasibility of him continuing to do that in the future because of his injuries is probably somewhat limited. So I guess the reason I'm bringing that up is to say thank you to everybody who's supported the Juniper Fund and who supported GoFundMe with Steven's page there. That's in our bio at Everest Live. These are the best ways to support Hillary Dawa and his family. I can say honestly that, the time that I've spent with all of them over the past few days, they're people with incredible integrity. They're great people, and they're people that are now facing a really uncertain future. And as all of us know, I think that family is going to go through a really they've gone through this huge life change. But also, as you all know, like these big transitions in life where you have to move out of a career, where you're recovering from a major injury. The insurance that Hillary Dawa has is health insurance. It's medical insurance. So it's not going to necessarily cover his livelihood moving forward. So every donation that you all have contributed is incredibly helpful. It means a huge amount to all of us, to the family especially. And I just would encourage everyone who's been moved by his story, even a few dollars will make a big difference for them. And these are people that genuinely deserve it. And they're people that are really genuine people that, of course, will make the most of it. So again, the GoFundMe link is in our bio, or you can make a donation to the Juniper Fund. And through both of these mechanisms, I can vouch that the funding will go directly to the family that needs it the most. So in terms of updates, other things that I've learned, we learned a few more details about actually his epic story of how he got down and self-rescued off the mountain. A few things are different from the earlier versions of the story that I had been learning and hearing from people. Basically, up until, he was working as a cook in Camp 2, one of the Sherpas was kicked off the expedition. And so he was elected or volunteered or, assigned to take the Polish client up to the summit. The summit push, as we heard from Chris, was super long, and that sort of led to when the team got down to Camp 4 and regrouped. The one Sherpa took off from Camp 4, went directly to Camp 3, leaving 3 people behind. One, the Polish client, with serious frostbite. As the 3 of them headed down alone, Hilary Dawa ran out of oxygen around the yellow band, which is between Camp 3 and Camp 4. He sat down to rest. I think he still probably fell asleep. And the rest of the group, Chris and the Polish climber, continued on down alone. According to Hilary Dawa, when I talked to him today, he kind of woke up from his sleep, and he was very concerned about, he still had his backpack with all the empty oxygen bottles, some of the client stuff in that. He was very afraid of, excuse me, abandoning that backpack. And so he carried it down, and he moved, under his own steam down to Camp 3, where he was able to heat up some water, drink some water, eat some food, and he made his way down to Camp 2, where there was nobody there and everything was all packed up. At that point, I think he still felt that there's only, 4 or 5 hours down to Everest Base Camp through Camp 1 and down through the icefall. He was quite confident that he would make it. He told me, he was like, I was basically back at that point. And he was still very much moving under his own power, a little hungry, a little tired, but he was still going strong. It was after he crossed that big, huge crevasse many of you have seen pictures of this season, which there was still a bridge in place for. By a lucky coincidence, he crossed over that 5-ladder bridge that was still there, and it was the next crevasse that had a single ladder over it that he was looking to find a safe way to cross. As he was sort of shuffling around, looking for a way to cross, he fell through a snow bridge, and he fell about 50 feet, or he said about, 20 meters, 15, 20 meters, and in the process, severely injured, broke some bones in one of his legs or feet. He said 2 or 3 days in the bottom of that crevasse, and here's where the story gets real. It was only at the bottom of the crevasse that he actually let go of the backpack with the oxygen cylinders, and he rationed his food and sort of gnawed on pieces of ice to be able to keep getting some sort of hydration while he was down there. But I can only imagine what that was like, knowing that you're alone on the mountain at the bottom of a crevasse on Mount Everest. I mean, I think it's something that defies the imagination. And he went through that experience, and as we mentioned in earlier reports, some heavy snow fell and a series of avalanches filled in part of the crevasse so he could kind of drag himself up a snow ramp and get back onto the route. Once he was back on the route, he wasn't able to move well because of his leg, but he was able to find one of the fixed ropes and sort of follow that and use that to hold him up as he made his way all the way down through the ice wall, where he was rescued and brought to safety. So just an epic, epic story. I'm sure we'll be able to tease out more details and more dramas. I'm really curious about how he was feeling along the whole thing. When I talked to him today, he said to me, these things happen in the mountains. This is part of working in the mountains, which, I interpreted not necessarily as a resignation, but as an acceptance. And I think many, many Sherpas who work in the mountain, or high altitude workers, they understand the risks. They face those risks. As we know, this is not the first time Hilary Dawa has faced this type of situation. So that's the story. That's the update. We all need to be happy that he's doing great. He's going to make a great recovery. While the future is uncertain, he is strong and he is gaining health, his health every day. And that is really something we all need to be super, super grateful for, and honestly super impressed by. The last thing I sort of wanted to rant a little bit about today was sort of, I've been thinking a lot about Hilary Dawa. I've been thinking a lot about sort of my decisions to sort of not go into the hospital to interview him, just to spend time with his family. And I've just been thinking about sort of the process that led to this accident happening. And there were so many choices along the way for the expedition company, for members of the expedition. Do we climb or not climb when the clients are not feeling great or the clients haven't been fully acclimatized? Do we send up our Camp 2 cook when the Sherpa who's responsible and prepared for this, bailed out on the expedition? Do we continue a summit push past the turnaround time? Do we abandon our group and go down to Camp 2 alone? Do we, you know what I mean? How do we look at our team as a whole in terms of sharing resources and oxygen? There's so many questions, and I'm not trying to cast blame on anybody. High up on the mountain, people's mental state, people's rationality, people's decision making gets really, really, really blurry, and I don't think it's useful to try to blame people for making decisions in that context. It's just so hazy and dangerous. But the thing that I've thought about is that every step of the way, the decisions that were made were not the decisions that put Hillary Dawa's needs first. The decisions that were made were putting the needs of other people or other institutions or other factors ahead of his. And this is not uncommon in the mountains. This is not at all uncommon on Everest with Sherpa workers. People just take their strength for granted. The Sherpas have earned that level of trust and acceptance. But there are times when that goes awry. And that's what happened in this case. And the reason that I'm bringing this all up is just to finish with a story about how when the BBC Nepal office went and interviewed him in the ICU, that really rubbed me the wrong way. It just, for those of you who saw the interviews, he was obviously not into it. He was weak, it wasn't the right time, but also there's real consent issues around going into an ICU, which is supposed to be completely controlled for germs and that kind of thing, with a camera, asking so many questions when they're trying to recover, but also then there's issues of sedation and can that person actually even consent to that interview? The details around that and a number of other incidences at the hospital, did the family give permission, did they not, are also really hazy. And today, I think the hospital, HAMS, which is in Kathmandu, they released the second press release about Hillary Dawa's status. In that press release, they released his personal information, his age, and information about his medical condition, which ward he was in, that in any country's law, especially in American law, but also in Nepali law, this kind of personal information is very much covered under privacy and healthcare protection acts. The hospital put it out into the public, I think, to get ahead of the media blitz. But in doing so, they very much betrayed his confidence and they gave out his personal medical information to the world. I ended up calling the hospital. I had thought it was an interesting story. I interviewed them from Outside Magazine. They admitted that they understood the law and that they were in violation of it. I also, we talked with his family, and his family had a meeting with the hospital, and sort of requested and cajoled the hospital into taking down the press releases. And now also, without permission from the family, nobody is allowed on the hospital premises to meet Hillary Dawa and interview him. And that's something that I saw a lot of in my time in the hospital, were journalists pressuring the family to get an interview, to get in, to see him. And it's the kind of thing where I think this happens a lot with tragedies, where the people that are peripheral to the tragedy not only have to deal with their grief and the uncertainty about their future, but suddenly now they're in the position of having to appease a journalist. They're in the position of having to make other people feel better, or to defend their decision to not let that journalist into the ICU. I saw that playing out a number of times, and it was disturbing to me. And what had occurred to me, and this is kind of where I'm going with this rant, is that this is a situation, even with Hillary Dawa's story, his best interests are not in first priority. his story, no one is letting his story be his own. No one's waiting for him to tell it when he's ready, if he wants to tell it. Ultimately, it's his experience. Ultimately, the opinion that matters about any of this is his and his family's. And I'm grateful that the hospital sort of saw the light. But I'm frustrated that across the board, everybody's been wanting a piece of this story, and not everybody's been wanting to contribute to Dawa's future. So thank you, everybody who has done just that. Again, I'll encourage you. If you want to earn some like good karma in this life for next life or whatever, $5-10 to that cause, to that family is going to go to it's going to make a huge difference, probably more than it would in almost any other situation I know of. So please contribute to the GoFundMe or to Juniper Fund. Feel free to DM me if you have any questions or need any information on that. And that's also why, the information I'm giving you is all stuff I've had permission from the family to share publicly. But it's also why I think we'll take some time to let Dawa's story come out when he's ready to tell it. We know what happened. We know that he's a badass. We know that this is one of the best survival stories in Everest history. And I think it's time for us also to let him get some rest. I'll keep everybody updated. But when it comes to interviewing him, etc., I'm not going to push it. I'll stay in touch. We'll let you know. But thank you, everybody who's shown up so far. Let's keep it up. Spread the word. And we'll keep you posted. Pakistan season is starting. A bunch of people have left Kathmandu to go begin their expeditions on the 8,000 meter peaks in the Karakoram. We have people there who are going to be telling us what's happening. So Everest Live coverage is just going to keep continuing from me and Spot. Thanks, everybody. We'll talk to you soon.